Hey guys, Darren Carr here, coach of Wise Ocean Pods, and welcome back to an episode of our trade mode video. On today's episode, we will be discussing all the popular trade in and trade out targets of round 21. Can't believe round 21's already here. Got 4 weeks left of trades to go, so every trade matters at this point in time. So make sure you are using them very wisely. But as you all know, as we like to do things around here, let's just get straight into it. So I'll start off with the trade out targets because I think they're generally pretty easy. A little bit tougher this week than what I have been in the past couple of weeks, but um, that's just because I think a lot of teams are in a strong position at the moment with trying to pick who's going to fall off and who's not. But yeah, we'll see how everyone is thinking. So going down the list one by one, so we've got Logan Evans at number one, 5.1k coach to trading him out, and I think it's an absolute great option. Obviously, he's a cashed up rookie now. He's over 540k, so perfect time to trade him out. He's got Sydney this week, so more than likely this is the last week that he will generate cash. Obviously, them being a tougher matchup, so probably won't make too much more cash. So I think it's perfect time. Just jump off him, take that 300k off his head, and then put that on top of someone that you're looking to upgrade, or even do an upgrade on the other side of things, which is what I'm sort of doing when I show you my trades later on. But yeah, perfectly good option. Similar with Billy Dowling. I think there's a pretty strong theme across a lot of the top traded out players here with a lot of these rookies are cashed up, like a Dowling, like a Manor, like even a Sean Maker, who isn't quite cashed out, but still trading them out, get the cash off their head, and then moving them on to a better player. So all great options. Dowling can also go there. If you're still rolling with a Dowling with F6, I still don't mind holding him and just running him there. If I had to choose between a Dowling or a Manor this week to go on field, it's tough. It's a tough decision because Dowling's been pretty consistent with about 70s. This 49, I think, is a bit of an anomaly. He did have 5 free kicks against that week, so that would have been a 60 in most cases. So he's probably pretty much a safe 60 to an 80ish. Whereas a Manor, for example, is pretty much similar. Probably shows a higher ceiling. So I'd probably honestly back a Manor over the likes of Dowling. And I also just think, given what we saw with the Hawks, Connor McDonald went massive last week, and Dylan Moore did the same, very similar as well. So I think Manor can have quite a big game. So wouldn't mind backing him in as an F6 there. Unfortunately for those owners of Ridley, they have to trade him out with because I think he's named out this week. I think he had a bit of an injury. I probably should actually check that. I just assumed he was out with some sort of. Yeah, that's a hip flexor for 3 weeks. So, yeah, he needs to go, unfortunately, for them. So, yeah, trade him out. He's got a bit of money in his head, and that's just real unlucky for those owners. After I did sort of recommend people trade him in last week against St Kilda, the matchup was there. He was in good form. Yeah, it was all written on the wall that he should go big, but that's just fantasy. Sometimes it does like to smack you in the face, and hopefully not too many of the top coaches did that and would have wrecked, really hurt your season. Maybe not have wrecked it, but definitely would have hurt for sure. Luke Ryan is another one that I highly recommend trading out. He is number 2, I think, on my list this week. If I think most people would trade him out, but I think he absolutely needs to go this week. He is just shocking. Looking at his last, 7 or 8 weeks, he's only hit 100 at once, and he's hit a 97 the other time. But all that, everything's been below 90. 360s, 170, and a couple of 80s and 90s in there. So really been putrid. Free game style has definitely not suited him at whatsoever. So that has been a complete fail for those that did trade him in after his buy. After that news came out that they don't want to be flicking it back as much. So that really hurts because a lot of us did pay over $1 million for him. Luckily enough, I was an owner since I think round 7 or something like that. I can't remember. Yeah, something like that after the Sheasel thing. So maybe it was around 8 or maybe not around 9. So, anyways, I think he has to go. Sean Manor we already spoke about. Connor Rosie's an interesting one for me. I think a lot of people are overreacting to what his scores are. He's been pretty solid over the last sort of 2 months since he's come back, since a buy. So he's gone over 104 times, only dropping below 90 twice, including last week, which was a tough matchup. I get he has a tough matchup this week. I just think he bounces back. I mean, hits a low 100. I'm not expecting a big score again. Sydney are a tough matchup, but I don't expect him to cop too much attention in this game. I do think I think he's just a bit hard done by the community here. I think he's been perfectly fine, and I don't see why people are just jumping off of him. I still think Butters is the main tag target, so that should mean Rosie gets a little bit more freedom. But in saying that, the Swans do have multiple sort of tag options where they have a James Jordan, they have a Roe Bottom, and they also have like a Luke Parker or Adam Trelaw. Adam Trelaw? No. Taylor Adams. I always get them confused. Their names are very similar in my head for some reason. So yeah, there's a plethora of options that they could, if he does get off the train, then they can just go on him and stop him. So while I still think he'd be fine by the end of the year, like these next three matchups I actually particularly like, and that's why I'm sort of tossing up in my head whether I want to trade out a Butters as such, because I think he's going to cop the tag this week, right? But does he cop a tag next week? Neil Bullen has been a bit hot and cold with some tags. I think he's only been he's only been tagging when it's been like an elite ball user, like a Merritt, like a Bont, those sort of top echelon players. I don't know if a Butters or a Rosie's quite fit into that category just yet. I know they're superstars in the making, but I don't know if they're quite that caliber yet. So I don't think that's guaranteed locked in. Same with Crows. Does Berry do a bit of attention? Obviously with the likes of Dawson in there. Crouch is also back now as well. If I didn't already say this before, I am recording a bit later than I would normally on the Thursday night, so I have seen the teams come out, so I can give you the latest information here. So yeah, Matt Crouch, Roy Laird, and Dawson are going to be in the middle. Berry may be on the bit of outer. Who knows? He may even be out of the side by then. It all depends how he performs over the next couple of weeks. They also know they've also got a Saligo that runs through the middle, and you've seen a bunch of other rookies like a Zach Taylor and a Hugh Bond, who I probably don't expect to run through there as much with those big guys back. So big watch on what the Crows do, but I don't expect too much attention in this game, and that's not a pretty decent matchup. And Freo, again, probably not hopping too much attention in this game. They haven't run a tag, but they are pretty restrictive, especially recently in terms of like a midfield, midfield matchup. So while it's not the best run, it's also not the worst run, and I can definitely see a couple ceiling scores in these games. So definitely one you can play the gamble game where you hold on to him and hope he goes big the week after, because we know how Melbourne is. So I'm personally holding Rosie. I don't think he's a huge problem, but I can understand why other people are trading him out, just given he's probably one of the worst players you probably have in your side. But I do think there's other concerns in your side that have tougher matchups or have tag runs coming up. So maybe something to be considered there. O'Shawmaker's another rookie people are trading out. I think, he's not playing, so you might as well. Unless you need a, a looping option. I don't mind him. When does he play this week? He plays the last game, so he's a perfect looping option if you need him. Got to keep that in mind, because a lot of, those looping options are playing quite early. So Barnett plays on the Friday night. I'm trying to think of who else. Pink was even named, so you can't use Pink now as a looping option. The Pie Boys aren't too bad. They play on the Saturday night, so you probably could use a few of those. I'm struggling to think of who else you actually have there. Maybe if you still have a Garcia, here's another perfect option to have as well. So just keep that in mind. Hayden Young, people trading him out. I do and don't like this option with trading him out. I'm personally holding him just because my team shit. Just put it bluntly, it's not great. But he's got two great matchups for the next 2 weeks. Obviously, Cats being the easiest. And Essendon have been quite decent recently, with them just being sort of shambles. So I do expect him to be, around the 90 to 100 this week. There's also some concern that what's his name? Who's their coach? Longmire? Is it Longmire? Yeah, maybe it's Longmire. Say that they're going to tag Merritt, and because they don't have the likes of a Nat Fife in the side at the moment, who does the tagging for them? I instantly think of a Hayden Young. We know he's a very defensive mid. Does he just do the job for them, and then that really restricts what he could score? Or do they bring in a likes of a Neil Erasmus, or they bring Matt Johnson back in, and that he could do that job. We do know that Neil Erasmus has been named, so I have a suspicion that Erasmus will be doing the tagging option, so maybe that frees up Young a little bit, but that probably means he reduces in CBAs. Just thinking that obviously Merritt plays predominantly CBAs, so that means he'll be starting in the CBAs, which means one of the mids out of Brayshaw, Sarong, and um, Young needs to be removed out of the CBAs. So that could be a good and bad thing, but I think he'll be fine. Two good matchups. I think he can hit anywhere from a 90 to 110. I don't think he's going to go much more than that. We haven't seen many ceiling scores from him at all this season. He's hit two 120s through the entire season. Everything's been in the range between like a 70 and a 110 sort of area. It's been pretty consistent in his season, besides dropping that stinky sort of 39, 37 a few weeks back now. Yeah, but that was an extremely tough matchup. So I'm in the club of holding him, but I can understand why people, if he's your worst player, then absolutely trade him out. I don't think it's going to hurt you. I don't think he's got the capacity to go like a 130 on your head. So I think he will be absolutely fine there. But I can absolutely see fantasy gods just being like, nope. Once everyone's traded him out, he's going to go big and he's going to have a good season to finish off. But I'm in the club of holding him just for the next couple of weeks and then looking to trade him out, because this is a conversation I was having with one of my mates recently, and during the mid part of the season we were spoilt for mid options. Defender options. But it seemed like there was a plethora of defender options that we had to our disposal, and there was a lot of difference that you can make. But it's really gotten a lot tighter recently, and probably something I wanted to highlight in this video is that if you don't have the likes of a Whitfield, a Stewart, and then you can even throw a Sheasel and a Dacos in that. Those probably your main four guys. But then you got this second pack of these second pack of players that who aren't really performing to the standard. Like a Nick Martin, he's dropped off. A Clark has dropped off. You got a Rivers in there that's kind of up and down. Young's in there. I'm struggling to think of everyone else. I'm just looking at my team specifically, but there's a lot of different defenders in there that were sort of in that pack and now have dropped away. Even a Luke Ryan was there. Ridley was sort of there as well. So there's not a huge amount. Cripps was there as well. So it's sort of dropped off quite heavily. So it's now like, well, if I'm trading at Hayden Young, who am I getting to that's actually got the capacity to go that 100 to 110 sort of option? Or is it better just to hold a Hayden Young who's pretty much a consistent, 80 to 110 sort of guy who's been pretty consistent all year? Yes, it's not the most prettiest scores, but it's still a lot better than what we have been getting. You could make an argument that now a Sinclair could jump in there, or a Nick Newman, who we'll probably get into a little bit later in terms of a trade-in option. But there's really not that many other players that you really want to look at. Yeah, it's really hard for me to actually look at the moment. But yeah, there's not a whole lot of options that you really want to trade to. So I don't know. I'm starting to think of just holding him, especially for the next 2 weeks. Don't get me wrong. When he comes up against a tough matchup, then absolutely I'm all for it. These last two are pretty tough, so go for it. But just while he has a good couple games, I still think there's other people who want to trade out. We'll move on here. There's enough for Hayden Young. Lawson Humphrey falls in the same category as an Evans and a Dowling. He's cashed up. He's ready to go. Nearly 500k, so he can go if you're wanting to use that cash on his head. I think it's a great option. Jack Cripps, send it for the last couple of weeks. He absolutely needs to go. He has been stinky for the last 5 games, besides that one game where he did kick 3 goals. So absolutely trade him out. Joel Frazier, another rookie that needs to go. Kruger, absolutely. Sorry, pardon me. Luke Jackson is another one that probably needs to go with the likes of Sean Darcy back. We can't be having 60s and 70s in our forward line or in your ruck line. I wouldn't think anyone has him in ruck line, but as a forward, it's not worth it. So trade him out as you can. He'd be easily your lowest player on your field. People are trading out Kobe McKercher. Now, that's an interesting one because he is back this week. Maybe this isn't updated quite yet, but he's actually a trade-in target for me. Like, I'm not personally trading him in, but I can recommend other people to trade him in, just given he is up against the Tigers. I don't expect too much attention to go his way. We know how good of a defender he is and how much he can score. Just look at the scores that we've got recently. Two against two very hard opponents, then one against a really easy opponent. So he can be anywhere from like an 80 to a 130 sort of player for us. So I think he is probably falls in that category of a defender you could even trade in. So we'll get into that a little bit later when I rank him. But I think he's probably one you wouldn't be trading out. He'd be one you even trade into. Chad Warner, I do think is a one that needs to go. Like I get he had a pretty good patch through the middle part of the season where he's sort of a consistent 90 to 120 sort of guy. Didn't have a huge ceiling, but it's just one of those risky players. I think he's still a bit of a super coach player. I think the teams are starting to catch on now that he is quite damaging and obviously hits the scoreboard quite regularly. So they're going to start to shut him down a fair bit. So absolutely trade him out. Decent amount of money in his head, and he is clogging up a midfielder spot, which we all know are the best position in the field. So you want to get him up to the best player you can possible. Jordan Clark, definitely similar conversation as a Hayden Young, but I think the thing is that the run isn't as good for a defender, so he probably is a trade out before Hayden Young in my eyes, just given the run isn't as good. I can probably even show you that here. Fremantle, pretty bad. So they got Essendon this week as a neutral matchup, then you got Geelong next week, which is a red hard matchup. Whereas if you look for a midfielder in the Freo, it goes Essendon as green matchup and Geelong as a bright green matchup. So I'm in the camp of trading out a Clark beforehand, but we all know that Clark can definitely perform quite well. We saw it in the last quarter in the last game where they kicked. I think he scored like a 41-point last quarter, but that really saved his score. You got to think on the flip side of that as well. I think he was only on a 50 at 3/4 time. So you can look at one way or the other. He could absolutely blitz it, but when you look back at his record in the last sort of 2-3 weeks, it hasn't been hasn't been great. It's very similar to Hayden Young, where it's all been between like an 80 to 110, but no ceiling score. So again, it's probably not going to hurt you to trade him out, but again, who are you going to is the question. So I don't mind trading him out there. People trading out Thalstrup. He's back this week. I still think he's worth trading out. His break-even's pretty high, so he's pretty much cashed out. I'd only be keeping him. No, never mind. He's playing, so that throws that out the window. What the hell? Did I just skip through? How did McCutch drop? I'm so confused. My bad if I skipped ahead. I thought McCutch was up here. Maybe it updated. Never mind. People are trading out Ben Keys. Yeah, that was a bad trade. Trade him out. Not worth holding on to him. Yeah, kind of tricked us there. Zach Butters is one that we all need to talk about because there is obviously a huge tag target coming his way. You'd expect. I did sort of talk about it with Rosie, but obviously I don't expect too much of attention in his last 3 games unless it comes out of nowhere. But his form's been pretty decent recently. Like you look over the last sort of maybe not counting the GWS game where he copped a quite heavy tag from a Bedford, but most of it's been between like a 90 and sort of a 140. So he has shown a ceiling, and I do expect he will probably put up a decent ceiling game against the Melbourne and even in the showdown as such. So I'm still in the camp of holding him. I did toss between trading him out because I know the tag's probably going to hurt this week, but I think in the long run, I think I want him for these next 3 games. So I think I'm just going to suffer for now for this week and just hold him for the rest of the season. After that, I'll probably a bit of sentimental as well because I did start with him and I do want him on the end of season trip. So probably a bit of bias there, unfortunately. We'll do a few more here and then we'll move into the trading targets. I've already wasted 20 minutes on trade out targets, as I do, waffling too much. But Will Day needs to go. Tough run to finish the season. These next 2 particularly, and then decent run. Oh, sorry. 1 decent match to finish the season. North are actually quite restrictive. I know it's deceiving to me, still in the sort of mindset from last year or the years prior, but they are quite restrictive now. So I don't know. I think his form's been quite poor as well. Like as a footballer, he's great, but as a fantasy player, not quite as flashy. So I think he needs to go. And I think they'll sort of finish it off, unfortunately. People are trading out Tim English. I don't mind that. I'm personally in the camp of holding him for 1 more week. I don't think trading him to a Marshall this week is going to net you that much benefit, just given that Marshall comes up against the second toughest matchup for rucks in a Oscar McInerney. Whereas an English kiss comes up against an underdone Max Gawn. So you weigh it up, I think they're going to be very similar, even though I think Marshall has shown a bigger ceiling. Obviously, he's hit 150s and 130s as of like 2 weeks ago. But I'm definitely advocating to get in Marshall as soon as possible as of next week, where he does come up against a really easy matchup, and the run home is very nice. So definitely lock that in for next week for me, I think. But something I'm not going to do this week. Sammy Walsh is an interesting one because I actually think he's going to be great this week. This is an easy matchup, so he should bounce back after having a pretty poor last sort of month. I think just needs to find those tackles, which looking at the tough matchups, he's tough, and sort of like a medium. They're on their day they can be pretty tough. So I think with a bit of flexibility, he will thrive this week, and he is even a captain option, which I'll get into in my next video, my captain's video. So look out for that video coming out on Friday. So I'm backing him in. I would absolutely not be trading him out. He's going to have a tough game against against Crows. Sorry, what am I doing? Against my boys, the Hawks. Just how restricted they are. They're the most restrictive team for midfielders. So he'll probably hurt a little bit there. Probably won't cop too much attention because they're not tagging as such. But yeah, I can see a world where he still hits 100, just given maybe Colton are too strong for the Hawks and did get it done. But I'm absolutely not trading him out. And to finish off, Nick Dacos, I am in the opinion that he needs to go. Probably a bit biased because I did trade him out 2 weeks ago when he came up against Hawthorn. Was happy against them when he only scored a 6-7, but then was not happy last week when he went 128. So the end of the day, he's averaged over 100 since I've traded him out, which is not ideal, but I do think I am ahead a little bit this week, given that I think most people want to trade him out this week. Numbers probably don't say that. Like, I think it's only 600 players are trading him out. But I think he absolutely needs to go, just given the tag coming up. So you got Chincotta this week. That's pretty much locked in. I think that has to happen. Next week, there's a plethora of options that will tag him. He's easily the best player in their team, so it has to happen. The Lions are very restrictive. If not, they run a tag through a Berry, or they even have a few others that can do the job. A Dunkley can do a defensive role on him, or a couple others there. And then to finish off, there is a Neil Bullen that could do the job. If not, I'm sure there's someone else that would do that. I just don't see a world where in these 4 games, they don't put attention into him, just given how good he is. So I get he's a good fantasy player and all that, but I just think he's going to cop too much attention. But I want to do a bit of devil's advocate on the same side of things, because I was thinking about it today. The way he scores, he doesn't get a lot of marks and tackles. Like, look at these numbers. He regularly probably only hits, averages maybe 2 or 3 marks a game, and maybe 4 or 5 tackles. So not huge numbers, right? So he really relies on these high disposal games to get big numbers. So when he gets tagged, he's still able to get in on there and get the ball out and get plenty of handballs, but he's not going to get those tackles and marks to get him to that ceiling score. So I can still see a world where he sort of scores between a 70 and a 100 all the 4 weeks, but I don't see those 120s, 130 scores coming at all, just given the attention he's going to get. Plus, he hasn't hit too much of a ceiling. Like, last week was a bit of an anomaly. Easiest matchup. 115 a couple weeks prior to that. Did have a pretty good patch early on in the season between round 8 and round 12 where he hit 130 twice and 120. But besides that, not a huge amount. So I don't think he's going to hurt you in providing ceilings. So I think it's better if you just trade him out, and you can probably get him to a cheaper guy as such. He's already pretty cheap, so I think he can jump off to like a Nick Newman and of the like. So that will do it for the trade out targets. We'll move on to the trade in targets. I spent way too long on the trade out targets. The trade in targets. Alrighty, so Adam Shalor is clearly number 1 this week. Got Melbourne. He has been on fire all season, and it's honestly a disgrace that we've waited to round 21 to trade him in, and he will probably just get over to 10% this week. So I think if you're fighting for, a hat or a car or such, and you don't own him, I think it's just the factor that you have to get him just with the likelihood he's gonna put up a 120 and you're gonna miss that score. So I think you just have to do it. You just play the straight bat. Everyone's doing it. Just follow along because that is quite damaging, and I do think it's a pretty obvious one. The only flag I want to say is a Neil Bullen. There is a possibility that Neil Bullen could definitely tag him, but it could also go to a bond, right? So I don't think it's guaranteed to be locked in, but I can definitely see a world where, given how damaging he is and how important he has been in those last 4 or 5 games, even all season you could count. I think there's definitely a potential that he could get attention. So he is a perfect VC option as well, playing that first game on the Friday as an early game. So definitely like him there. The run isn't the greatest, I'll say that. It's purely just based on this game, so it's a bit short term in my eyes because he's only got Melbourne this week, which is obviously a great matchup. But then he goes Adelaide, who are a neutral matchup. Then he finishes off with 2 tough ones in North, and GWS. So 2 tough matchups. So it's not something I'm targeting just purely because it's a matchup thing. It's a very short term play, and I think you're a bit of FOMO that you don't want to miss out as such. So I'm personally not doing it just because my team's not in that position, so I can't actually get to him. I'm having to look for these cheaper options and targeting these matchups. So, but I really like him, and he is clearly number 1 target this week, and that's the way I've ranked him so far. Clay Hall is a 200k midfielder rookie. I think it's a bit unfortunate that we're going to see him this time of year. Would have been nice to see him next year as a 200k player, but he'd probably be 400 if not 500k by next season, just going based on average. So, but if you need a midfield rookie to trade down to, he's probably perfect. And make sure you still have a looping option. Sorry, a cover option, so having emergency on a player playing, because the last thing you want to be happening this time of year is having a laid out and you've got no emergency and you cop an absolute donut. So that could absolutely wreck your season. So I think he's a good trade in. Peatling is an interesting one. I did need to actually check the what's it called, GWS squad, because did a Cogs come in? Cogs did not come in, and a Kelly did not come in. So surely that means he is in the side. He's on the bench currently, so he should be okay. Obviously, his great option, like when he actually plays a full game, you actually just look at it here. He's gone 133, 86, 98. Did put up a 57 in 70% game time there. 115, 81. I'll count that one. 52 is there as well. So in the games where he actually plays a lot of game time, he does put up some very decent scores. I think he's probably averaging around that 80, if not even higher, honestly. But he's shown a ceiling as well. So if you're looking for a cheaper forward option, absolutely don't mind him. But there is a lot of concern. You've got Cogs and what's his name, Kelly, not too far. So Cornelia 1 to 2 weeks. This was actually a test, but I think he re-injured his shoulder. And Kelly 1 to 2 weeks. So it is going to be a short play for you, but that's at that price, it is always going to be a short-term play for you. And maybe you can just loop it between, a Dowling, a Manor, and Peatling for the rest of the season. No, for at least next couple of weeks, sorry. So I like him there. However, Giants have a really tough matchup coming in the next couple of weeks. So you got Hawthorn, which I said are tough matchup, and then they've got Brisbane Lions, who I think are 2nd or 3rd. So yeah, I'm personally not doing it, but I can see why other people are doing it. I'm probably just in favor of not doing it, unfortunately. Tom Stewart, I think we've spoken enough about him over the last couple of weeks. He's a must-have in the defensive line. He's still cheap enough. He's below 900k. Still has a pretty good run from what I can see here. All neutral matchups plus a bright green matchup to finish the season. So absolutely jump on him. No need to question that. Don't think he's much of a captain option this week, given the Crows don't really provide too many ceiling scores. And there's potential he could be tagged, but I still think he'll be fine. And he's been super consistent with 120, so he should be an easy 100, I would have thought. Matt Roberts is one we maybe need to spend a little bit of time on, just given he's come in the last 3 weeks and he's gone 89, 102, and a 138. He's priced at 550, negative 20 break even though we're not really focusing on break evens this time of the year. He's done that against 2 tough matchups in North and Brisbane Lions, and then done that against the mediocre sort of matchup against the Brisbane Bulldogs. So he's got Adelaide this week, Port Adelaide this week, so that's a pretty tough matchup. So I'm not expecting a 138 again, but maybe he can hit a 90. If you're looking for a D7, I'd consider it, but not if you're looking to field him as such. I don't think he's a fieldable option. At the end of the day, he's still a rookie, and there's no guarantee that he plays week in, week out. Even if I just scroll back to the like of their team, he is. Where is he? Where is he? He is on the bench. No, why can't I find him? 1 second, guys. Where the hell is he? I'm so confused. Am I not looking at the right side? It's Sydney, right? Yeah. Oh, his name is as a wingman. Sorry, guys. That's not very good video, but he's on the wing. I just don't think I could do it this week. It feels a bit dirty to trade in a rookie like him, even though he has shown a ceiling like that. But at the end of the day, he's a rookie. He can definitely put up these lower scores. With steam when it gets wet, it could definitely be a game that you don't want to own him. And we have seen in the past that they do throw him every now and then to a random spot. So you can look at he's been sub a couple times. So there's a world where he could end up there. So I'd just be very, very careful. I don't think he'd be the sub this week, given they have like a Corey Warner in there. So he should be fine from that sense. But it definitely doesn't mean he's going to be playing in that sort of role. They've also brought a Aaron Francis in, who I believe is a defender. So bit one to be concerned about. So I personally couldn't do it. So that's all I have to say. Ed Richards is another decent option. It hurts because I get like you probably want a Trelaw, but you can't get to him, so you're just going for the next best option. And he's put up two great scores. Don't get me wrong. He's gone 131 and 114. One against a tough matchup, one against the easiest opponent. And before that, he's put up a couple 70s. So it's tough considering. Yes, it's going to be a good matchup, but I just don't know what his role is going to be like. He seems to have this sort of half-back role into the midfield sometimes. Like, he went 61% last week. Before that, he went to 32%, back up to 90% week prior to that. So his role is very up and down depending on who they want in the midfield. Obviously, being Trelaw, Bontempelli, and Liberatore being the main ones. But then they throw, the likes of Sam Darcy, he's a ruckman, wouldn't consider that. And then they've also got Riley Garcia that's also thrown in there at points in time. So I don't mind it. It's just, it doesn't feel great in my head. I definitely think there's a risk there that he could drop a low score like a 70. And I just don't know if it's going to be super consistent. He has relied on a couple goals in the last couple of weeks. I don't think that's going to happen every week. But in the sense, he does remind me of a Thomas Stewart, where he has come from the back line into the mid. He still gets a lot of those chip mark around the back line, similar to a Trent Rivers. So I guess in the sense that I traded in Trent Rivers, I should like this as well. But I just don't think I've seen enough from him to justify trading him in when he has dropped those lower scores. And yeah, I guess the run also isn't there either. So I don't think he's one I would be holding for the remainder of the season. And that's probably where I cross the line. I sort of want the guys that are trading in this week to be ones I can hold for a little while longer than just 2 weeks. So that's enough on that one. Dane Zorko, pretty straightforward. I think he's one that you just need to trade in this week if you haven't owned him. He's hurting you. He's really hurting you. He's on back-to-back 130s. And he's got Saints this week, so that should be an easy matchup. He's in great form. Saints are quite easy to score against, although doing a bit of captain research, they've actually been quite restrictive in the past 4 or 5 weeks. So make sure you see that video coming up on Friday to check out my captain selections. Sneaky peek, he doesn't feature in my top 5, given that fact. So probably going a little bit ways from what everyone else is doing. But I still think he's easily top 4, if not top 2, if not 3 in the forward line, and you absolutely just need to own him to finish off the season. So jump on board. He's been hurting you all season. Hugh Bond is another trade-in option. If you need a defender, I don't see why you wouldn't. He's 240k, break even of 7. I think he's just more of a see out at the end of the season, just make sure you have a score there. I would be a bit concerned with where he plays this week, given they have brought a couple midfielders back. So where does he actually play? We've seen him quite heavily in the midfield in the past couple weeks. So if we even go here, Hugh Bond. Oh, sorry, I was talking about Zach Taylor. Hugh Bonds only spent 21% time in the mid last week. The week prior, and then last week was none. So you're probably going to continue to see these sort of lower scores like 50s because I think he's more of a backman. So I think he'd be fine. I don't think he's going to light the world on fire, but he should be fine. Harry Sheezel, people are trading him in, and prior to the team's news, I understood why people are doing this. Great run for the next sort of 2 to 3 games, and he's been in ripping form over a little while. But there is news that what's his name? Jack Graham is in, who has traditionally been tagging. So we saw him tag, I can't even actually list it off, but he has been tagging quite recently. I think he was meant to tag Butters, but he was out, so that didn't happen. I'm sure I can actually think of who he tagged, but it's pretty much guaranteed he's going to tag a Shiesel now. I'd be very surprised if they tag anyone else, like an LDU or even a McKercher. That would just be an ultimate slap in the face to a Shiesel. I think Shiesel is easily the most damaging player, but at the end of the day, do you tag a North player? You don't you just back your team in to win? You are, Richmond should be well and truly on top of here, but I don't know. It's a tough call because we saw the likes of Chin Cotter didn't tag anyone, just be given, Colton had it pretty much in hand. Sydney didn't do any tagging either, so I think this is a very different situation though. Those teams are clearly on top of the ladder. They're fighting for premierships, whereas Richmond, they're just trying to get off the bottom of the ladder, or are they tanking to try and lose? So who knows? If they don't tag him, I'd consider them the tanking and they're not trying to win the game. I'd be very surprised if they don't tag him. So it's probably enough said. It's a tough call now though. If you trade him in, if you don't have him, I'm in that case where I don't have him, and I'm probably not going to trade him in. I did look at it, given the good run and his elite form, and I would classify him as being in that sort of top 2-3 defenders, quite clearly above a lot of the rest. But given now that he's probably going to get tagged this week, I'm probably just avoiding it. So, is it worth trading him out? Probably not. He still has a pretty decent run for the next couple of weeks where he won't copy any attention. So there is that. Dylan Moore, still a great trading target. He's still my number one for forwards. He's been very consistent as this sort of 70 to 130 sort of guy. Even when he doesn't hit the scoreboard, he's still putting up 90. So love him there. He is pretty expensive now at 800, but he's still a great option. I will say though, he has 2 tough matchups coming up against GWS and Carlton. So you maybe could go a couple different ways and then get him for the final 2 games, but you probably don't absolutely need him for the next 2, where I do expect him to probably put a few lower ones. But even if still, he put up an 83 against the Giants early on in the season. And have we played Carlton yet? I don't think we haven't played Carlton all season, so it's hard to really say that one. Whitfield, again, it's a tough matchup the next couple of weeks, so you probably missed a lot of the scores that you sort of expected. But in saying that, I think he's still pretty much a safe 100 guy, even in tough matchups the last couple of weeks. He's put up 108, 106 against Carlton and Sydney. So I think he's still a safe 100. So I think you probably just want to own him. You are paying a lot though, and it probably goes against my rule of paying over $1 million for players. So I'm personally not doing it, but because I already own him. But if you're fighting for hats and stuff like that, I think you just match there. Unfortunately, I don't think you'd be in that case if you don't own him. But yeah, I think you just match there. Same with Josh Dunkley. He is quite more expensive. Does have a great run. I will say that though. I think he has sort of one of the greater runs to finish off the season. He's number 4 on my mid list. So yeah, trade him in. I don't think he cops too much attention, given that Neil is the main main tag target. So absolutely. Besides that, we'll finish off with a couple others. Not going to talk about any more rookies. Graham Wise, I still like him. He's number 3 on my forwards. For all the reasons I've spoken about, he's going to hit the forward line at some stage to finish off the season. Even when he didn't last week, he still hit all stat lines with 21 disposals, 7 marks, 7 tackles. So put up a nice 89 there. Sorry, 98 there. I think he'll be pretty consistent. He's got 3 great matchups to finish. Roll Marshall, as I spoke about with the Tim English thing, trading him out. I don't mind going a week early, but he does have a really tough matchup this week against Oscar McInerney, who is the second hardest matchup for Ruckman. So be careful with that one. In saying that, he does actually like playing against Oscar McInerney. He did score a 105 against him early on in the season, so I think he's still going to be a safe 100. Just you're probably not going to get that massive ceiling score that we sort of expect from him. So keep that in mind. Charlie Curnow, and it probably spoils my trades a little bit because it's all yellow around him, but I'm trading him in this week. I love him as an option. In the next 4 weeks, he's got quite easy opponents. So he's got Collingwood, should be a great option there. Hawks are a bit tougher, but I do suspect that Carlton would be too strong for them and then probably get the win. So he should kick a bag. Oh, not a bag, sorry. He'll kick a couple at least. Then they've got the sweetest matchup against Eagles. He should have a field day against them. And then also he's got St Kilda to finish off. So couple easy matchups there. The other thing you've got to consider, his form. He's been elite in the last 3. He's kicked 3 goals plus in each, and one he could have absolutely had 10. So the other thing you've got to consider as well, the Coleman race. He is leading the Coleman race just at the moment by 3 goals. So this is the time of the season where they really start to feed these sort of guys that are fighting for it. So I think they just start to feed into him a little bit more. You maybe even see Harry Mackay sort of jump in and help him out a little bit, just because I think Harry Mackay is a little bit too far away, unfortunately. If I bring that up real quick. So Harry Mackay is on 44 when Charlie Curnow's on 56. So I think he's too far back at this point. I think it's pretty much out of Jesse Hogan and Charlie Curnow. So I think they're just going to feed him to him. And I'm just going to back that in for the rest of the season, hoping for a few ceiling scores, expecting a few lower ones here and there. Yeah, you've even seen that against the likes of Richmond, where you think it's going to be an easy matchup, but he did only kick 2 goals and had 41 points. So it's a bit of a risk, but I unfortunately don't have the cash to get to anyone much better. I could obviously go down to a Peatling, but I think I'm just going to back in McCurnow. Just with all those factors, there's 3 factors why I think he should be good. So that's generally a nice rule of thumb to jump into some players. So I love him as an option. To finish off a couple here, Heaney, absolutely jump on him. Tristan Cherry, I don't mind jumping on him if you don't know him. He has a great run to finish off, so absolutely do it. Especially if you're going from an English, I don't mind that this week. I just don't think English to Marshall's the greatest option this week. English to Cherry is definitely the one. And people are trading in Cabs wrong. It's a tough call. His last 2 weeks have been okay, but he isn't really hitting major ceiling scores. I think he'd be okay for the next 2, but again, the last 2 aren't great, so be careful of that. Not trading in Tom Power, not trading in Cam Rayner. Nick Newman, I really like. I've spoken about him previously before. Great run, one of the best runs to finish off for defender players, so actually the best to finish off. So he goes Collingwood this week, then has 2 neutral matchups in the Hawks and Eagles, and then finish off with Saints, who are an easy matchup. So I love him as an option. People trading in Dacos, very odd, but no. And then Anderson, I love him as an option, and again spoils my trade a little bit as he is yellow. Best run to finish off the season for an inside mid. There was an interesting stat that Calvin put out on the pod on Monday, that his average when they win is like 118, which obviously is predominantly at home because I don't think they've won away from home just yet. They only have 1 game at home to finish off the season. But when you look at their run, these are the games you expect them to win. So Eagles, you think they win, even though they're playing them at the Eagles home. you'd have to think that they get the win. If they're any chance of winning finals in the next couple of years, they absolutely need to win this game. So they should win, and he should be good, and he should have a pretty big ceiling score. Essendon is probably the only tough one I'd say, but that is at Marvel, so it's not something they're guaranteed to win. So that's maybe one I don't expect him to do as well in, but maybe still put up at like a 90 something. The last two I do expect them to win though, because this one against Melbourne is at sorry about the dog in the back. I do expect Melbourne them to lose to Melbourne, just given that it is at First People Stadium, so they should get the win there. They haven't lost there yet, just yet. Also, they lost this week against Brisbane, but prior to that they hadn't. And then they should get the win against Richmond as well. So those are three matches I think he wins, and he should put up some pretty decent scores in those games. So I'm backing him in for the remainder of the season. Alrighty. Any more? Should I go through any more? I've got some questions to go through as well, so maybe I'll finish it off there. Just go through some quick name, quick fire. Wang, I'm not a huge fan. I hasn't shown much of a ceiling, plus a tough run to finish off the season, so I'm a no. Oliver Henry, no. Don't know why people are really looking there. I get he put up an 81, but that's against North. Don't know if that's something to really look at. Sinclair, same reason as a Wang. I just don't know where he plays, so I don't think I could do it. Really tough matchup for defenders, but a really nice matchup for midfielders. So if he plays in the midfield, great. If he doesn't, then it's disaster. And with the likes of what's his name, Philippou coming back in the side this week, I do expect him to move back a little bit more. So I'm just a no on Sinclair. Well, not a no, like it's still an option, but he's a bit further down my list of trade ins. Jai Sinkim, I still love as a trading option. He makes my top 5 of midfielders, forwards, and that will sort of do it. Jack Steele's there as well. Brayshaw, yes. Philippou, I don't mind it, but yeah. Alrighty, let's quickly recap with a few pop-ups here. So we'll start with the defenders. It's Harry Sheezel, number 1. Absolutely want to be trading him in. Oh, actually. I should have updated this actually. I haven't updated it since the team. So Sheetal probably drops down a fair few since the tag news coming through. So I would probably put him at 3 now. Just given that I still think he'd be good for the remainder of the season, but this week doesn't sort of sit well with me. So Nick Newman is my number 1, just given the tight run. Dane Zorko is number 2, just given that it's a great matchup this week. I think he's one that you need in the forward line. Wait, why have I put Dane Zorko in the defenders? I'm so confused what I've done there. I've absolutely destroyed this. I don't know what I've done. Just screw this all. Sheezel is there. Nick Newman, I think is great trade in as well. Jack Sinclair is also a decent option, but I just don't want to know. I don't want him in the defense line. Tom Short's obviously probably in there as well. I just didn't put him in here because I assumed everyone sort of had him already. And then I've put Kobe McKercher in the bottom there, just given I did expect him to be back this week, and I do expect him to take that role in and just absolutely continue on his way. So I really like him as an option. Move on to the midfielders, where hopefully I've got it correct. So trading options for midfielders, I've got number 1 at Adam Treloar. I do expect him to be really good this week, but as I've said, I don't think it's the best option for the remainder of the season. I just think this you don't want to miss out on this big score that he's going to have. So absolutely do it. And we've also seen that he's super consistent. His lowest score has been like an 83 all season. So he's one that you just want to own for the remainder of the season. I've got Andy Brayshaw at number 2. I still really like his run for the remainder of the season. If I can find him anywhere, I can't not. Or did I skip over him? I did. His form has been elite. Like he's gone 120 plus sort of 3 times in the last 6 games. 115 in there as well, but he has dropped a few 80s and even a 67 in there. So I just think he's going to be good. These next 2 week gigs are going to be quite tasty for him. Number 3, Noah Anderson, my boy. Like I said, great run to finish off the season. Should get instant award this week. All those stats I showed before, I do think they win 3 of the matchups, and that should provide 3 big scores from him. So I really like him there. Cheaper option as well. Number 4, I've got Josh Dunkley. He's a little bit lower than what probably should be given how good he is, but I think it's just a tough matchup. Why can't I find him? Well, there he is. I keep skipping over everyone. Tough matchup against Saints, just given they're a bit more restrictive as of recently. So I don't think it's worth paying up all that money for him just for this matchup. In saying that, I do really like his last 2 matchups. So yeah, really like him there. And to finish off, Jack Steele is number 5. Great run for a midfielder. Good price as well. So there's that. For rucks, we'll quickly touch on them, even though there's not much to talk about. It's really just you want Cherry and you want Marshall. That's the only 2 rucks you want. If you don't have one of them, then you either make plans to get one of those in the next fortnight, if not this week. So there's that. Like I said before, if you have an English and you're looking to trade him to a Marshall, I'm probably in favour of holding off this week, waiting for that good run to come. If you've got the likes of an English and you don't have a Tristan Cherry, then absolutely make that trade this week. Cherry could definitely be pretty big this weekend. And finally, the forwards, which is probably what everyone's here for, honestly, because they are shambles. Dylan Moore's still my number 1. I think he's probably part of that main 4 now. So main 5, sorry. With Geelong, Caldwell, Heaney, Zorko, and who's the other one? Flanders. I think he's clearly part of that. Shown the ceiling, shown the consistency. Yeah, good run as well. Decent run, sorry. So he should be good to finish off the season. Jai Simpkin is number 2. I just think he's got the run, got the role, especially with the likes of Wardlow out this week. I think he gets some heavy CBAs, so he should put up a very decent score. Myers is next. I keep repeating myself a little bit here, but I do really love him as an option. Got 3 great matchups to finish off the season where he should hit the scoreboard and provide plenty of inside 50s for his teammates, so he's getting his hand on the ball. But because he's further down, he has shown a lower floor, so that's why he's down further. Mason Wood is number 4. Not much spoken about him this week, given that he was pretty hot topic last week. Did only put up the 79, but he's been pretty consistent for a little while. Provides plenty of marks on the wing, so he should be pretty decent. So he's down at number 4. And finally, number 5, I've gone Charlie Curnow. Again, not to repeat myself, I just think he's got 3, if not 4, really good matchups to finish off the season. The Coleman is a factor, and the price, and just the form he's in as well. He's looking like he's going to kick a bag at some point. He hasn't kicked over 5 this season, and I think he's due to have a big day. So I'm backing him in there. Alrighty, so that's all the trade-in, trade-out targets. Hopefully that's helped you with your decisions this week. To finish off, we'll quickly go through what I'm doing, and then we'll go through some questions. So I think we've already spoiled it a little bit, but my team is going Logan Evans to Charlie Curnow and going Tom Powell to Noah Anderson. So I think Logan Evans is probably expected because that's pretty obvious. But Tom Green is probably the one that not many people are doing, and this is sort of where I'm tossing up because it was originally Butters, but now I'm going with Tom Green given the tough matchup, which is hard to sort of say because his run recently has been really good. So he hasn't dropped below 100 in the last 6 weeks, and he has come up against tougher opponents then. So I don't expect him to start dropping, stinkers like 60s and 70s, right? I do still think he's going to hover around that 80 to 100 sort of area, if not just sneak over 100. He's got tough opponents. They're toughest for midfielders with Hawks, so he shouldn't go great this week. He's got Lions the week after. Again, probably, I think, top of the 4th hardest midfielder option. Plus, they have a tagging option if they really wanted to. Then they've got Freo and Western Bulldogs to finish off, who are quite restrictive as well. So quite a tough run to finish off, even if I show that here. Red, orange, neutral, and then orange to finish off. So I'm sort of just like, when I look at my team, who do I want to trade out? Do I jump off a tag option that's going to happen for 1 week, but then it opens up again? Or do I trade someone out that's going to have a tough run to finish off the season, who probably isn't quite in that plethora of those top 8 midfielders? So I think I'm going to go with Tom Green for now as a trade out, but there's every chance it could be a Butters in the end of the day. I can do it with either option. Yeah, so that's my trades. Let's do on some questions quickly. All right, this question comes from AU Rules Football. Is Ridley Cripps to Stewart and Roberts a bad idea? Ridley has to go. Cripps probably should. I can loop Roberts with Humphreys. Should I hold Cripps and stay away from Roberts and do something else? I think Cripps needs to go. I think no matter what he's been doing, he's been shocking. He's been putting up 70s, and I think a rookie can provide that. A Humphreys can do that for you. A Roberts can do that for you. So I think both of those are great trade outs where you're going from Ridley and Cripps. Stewart's probably a must have at this point in time. I think it's a great trade. And then if Roberts is the only one you can get to, then I don't mind it. And like you said, you can loop between a Humphreys and a Roberts there. So I think both of those can definitely provide some decent options for you. If you can't, if you can get to, probably it is a bit more expensive, but if you can get to a McKercher, I would recommend that. But in saying that, he is about 200k more expensive, so maybe that's out of the picture. But yeah, I definitely do like that option. Next question comes from, that's not a question, user Clark and Rosie, or Young and Butters out. So different options here. So by the trade out one of these opponents, I'd probably go with Butters and Young. I think it's tough because I probably prefer Clark being out before Young, but then I also probably want Butters out before Rosie. Could you go a Butters and a Clark? I think that provides you more cash, honestly, because Clark is more expensive than a Young, and Butters is definitely more expensive than a Rosie. So surely you can do that. I'd personally be going Butters and Clark out. I think Butters definitely comes contention this week, and Clark has a terrible run, so I don't think he's going to hurt you too badly. I think just back in the Young run, and I think he should be a consistent sort of 90 to 100 guy this week, if not the next 2 weeks. Next question comes from JAFL MTB. Would you go LDU to Trelaw and mana down to a 200k, or Hayden Young to Ed Richards and LDU to Adam Trelaw? Ooh, so this is more of a upgrading an LDU. You're still getting to Trelaw anyway, so why would you downgrade someone? I'd probably be doing luxury trade this time of season, just trying to get to those best players you can. So absolutely LDU to Adam Trelaw, great trade. Lock that one in. It's just a second trade. What are you doing? A mana down and banking the cash for the next week or so, or going Hayden Young to an Ed Richards. Now I'm looking at it. Is Ed Richards really going to give you that big of a upgrade this week? Like, say a Young is maybe 100 guy, and Ed Richards would have to go 120 to be a decent trade in. So I'd maybe just it's tough. It's very tough. Look, trading a Young, I don't mind it. I think if you're trying to be a little bit different, absolutely do it. I just don't think it's going to hurt. I don't think he's going to hurt you as such if you trade him out. So, yeah. Go with your gut. It also depends what you're going to do next week. So make sure you're planning your next week trades. If you need that 300k next week or 200k, whatever it's going to be, then absolutely do that. Just consider your next week trades. Next question comes from Lucas. Should I trade Luke Ryan to Trelaw or Dowling at F6 to Simpkin? Ooh. I am in the opinion that you need to trade Luke Ryan. I think you're definitely losing too many points in that line. Obviously, you have an additional defender there going to Trelaw. So I think that's clearly a sort of a 60-point upgrade, whereas a Dowling to a Simpkin maybe only a 20 or 30-point upgrade this week. So just looking at it from a clear points upgrade on field, you should go Ryan to a Trelaw there. A lot of questions, a lot of comments in here saying that they're loving the new format. I do really appreciate the comment, the feedback, guys. It's good to see that you're all enjoying the new format. This one is a longer video, but hopefully it's not too bad for you and a bit more informational. A few more questions here. I'm just trying to find more questions. All right, Stuart. Sorry, the question comes from Fremantleship of Spears. Well, I can't say her name. Sorry, mate. Frio Ship something. So Stewart for Young, then Xeri for English. So I'm assuming they're trading in Stewart and Xeri for Young in English, and I think they're great trades. I think English can go to a Cherry, and Young to a Stewart, I think is great as well. All right, and I think that sort of does it for the questions of today. So that will do it for today, guys. Hopefully you've enjoyed. Hopefully I've helped with your captain option. Sorry, your trading targets this week and who to trade out. So I will catch you guys in my captain's video later on Friday. Hopefully you've enjoyed, and please leave us a like and subscribe, and drop any feedback here in the comment section. Any questions as well. I'll be doing my best to answer them before lockout tomorrow. So all the best, guys. Have a good weekend. Bye.